Hello, musicians. Sorry, that's my other channel. If you haven't seen, I have another channel. I'll try and remember to link it. If you're interested in learning how to play a musical instrument, I teach ukulele as well. So, okay. I just got to plug in my microphone. We would try something different. I've got a few different things I wanted to talk about. And first off, there is a children's book that I think is just such an amazing book in the story, but the artist. So Garth Williams is an artist that uses and does these ink drawings, and there's a little bit of color, but I just wanted to show you the beauty of the line that you may want to do more of. And I think this would probably be some kind of an ink that he would use. So the story is three characters. The cat, well, it's the cricket is the main character, and then this little mouse and the cat. Just amazing line drawings. And I would recommend for all people to copy artists that you really find endearing. There's so much information online. Other artists, you know, I used to copy all of the like Van Gogh and Renoir. I loved all of their work, and it's just a really wonderful thing to do. This is another wonderful, and you can see all the lines, and you could just use your same skills with measuring if you wanted to replicate the same size. And of course, this one was one of my favorites. So Garth Williams is the author, and what I did was I drew that just on a piece of writing paper, I think this is. So I drew it, and I drew that picture, and then what you can do is scan it, and then I used a technique where you take a canvas and you can transfer, like you print it out and it comes out in black on black ink, and then you use a Mod Podge on a piece of canvas. This isn't the best one because it was one that I did as an experiment, but I did a couple of more, and they just come out really cute. You take the paper, and there's a technique that you do, put the Mod Podge or glue, but Mod Podge works better, a surface, and then you take the print that you've printed out from the drawing that you've made, and then you just let it dry overnight, and then the next day you take a damp sponge and you wipe away the paper that's above the ink, and slowly, gently, and there's videos about how to do that, and then the picture emerges like that, and it's put onto canvas. So it's a nice thing to do. I just love this artist. If you're familiar with these books and his work, there's one more that I really like. You can just see the detail and all the line work in it. Just amazing. And just a very enjoyable thing to do, the little mouse there. So yeah, that's another, I think his name is on here. There it is. And it's George Selden is the author of these books, and he also wrote, oh geez, I can't remember. No, it wasn't, Garth Williams illustrated Charlotte's Web and a few others. So today I thought we would do a landscape. So I'm working on a landscape in pastel, and I'll just show you it. It's large. So this is my inspiration photo here. So I would have gone out and saw a landscape that I really liked, and then I come home and I print it out, and then I just sort of do some interpretation with my colors, and this is done in pastel. So I thought it would be nice to just do a little pencil drawing, because having the pastel can be something that not everybody wants to do, but that doesn't mean you can't create landscape drawings that are really nice with just a pencil. So and I also thought it would be nice if you have one of these kicking around. It's a mechanical pencil, and it would be good for those line drawings that are very fine. So very, very fine lead in this one, and you can pick them up fairly inexpensively if you don't have one kicking around the house. So to do a landscape like this, basically what the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to decide where I want my horizon on my reproduction of this drawing. So I see, to me, that the horizon is about a quarter of the whole picture. So I'm going to measure like I usually do. 1, 2, it's a third. So I might want it a bit bigger than a third, the horizon, because I might want to be able to have more logs out front. And I don't need so much sky, all this, and it's beautiful, but I don't really need it. So just like when you're doing an object that we've been working on, is that you're squinting at this and you can really see all the different defined values. It's very obvious, which is great. The light source, and the tree here is not illuminated except for little small spots there. And you've got a lot of light on these logs. This one, right? A lot of shapes. And then some rocky beach. You've got the reflection of the clouds, right? So you see these areas of white here, and you want to preserve those, or at least be aware of them. Smaller ones there. And then the thing about perspective in this kind of thing, where you're taking this and you want to create a similar visual effect, is that things that are close up, like when they're darker when they're close. So the mountains, if they were close to you, they would be very dark. But a way to create perspective is as they recede, they become lighter. So that gives the illusion of distance on your paper, your flat surface. So the farther away they are, the dark object becomes lighter as it recedes, and a light object, so water, as it recedes, usually there'll be quite a definite darkness in the water, and then as it gets farther away, so you can often put a line, as it's receding, it's getting darker. So lighter, lighter, and then darker, darker. So it's light when it's up close, darker as it recedes, and dark objects like mountains, dark when they're up close, and light as they recede. And so you can see when you get like layers of mountains, and you'll have a lot of them, it'll just be lighter, lighter, lighter layers as the what's called atmospheric influence causes that. And your eye is looking for those cues when it's trying to go, okay, this is a landscape, this is a landscape image. So I'm just going to do a little bit of a pencil drawing. And I did do this before, and I made a card of it. This was not the same one that I've done. This is a quicker sketch, but also in pastel. But it needs to have a surface done, and so that's a lot more complicated than just doing this. So I'm just going to set this to the side and do our process of creating a horizon. So I know my paper is 11 inches long, and if I want the horizon to be about a third or a bit more, I'm going to put it at about 4 inches. So I'm going to carefully put that, and I'm just going to put a little mark at the 4. And of course my paper edge is straight, so I know that. 4. So horizon first is what I always do. I'm going to mark it out, lightly joining that. So today I just thought we would, do our usual little bit of a warm-up. I'm probably going to take a separate piece of paper to do that. And yeah, so just give myself a bit of, I always like to reuse the back side of paper. So just to do some warm-ups with the mechanical pencil and getting used to it, because it has a different feel, but it's very cool to be able to make small lines. So I'm not needing to worry about a light source because I'm dealing with a photograph. So I'm not worried about light source in my room today. So I'm just going to start to do some very light vertical lines, getting used to the feel of the more fragile graphite in there. And you can do that very small, so the verticals, and then I'll come and do some pulls. Again, with a right-handed person, it's going to be different feel depending on where the strength of your muscles have already been developed. So you want to go in all directions, so up, and then smaller. And then I'm going to, again, moving my wrist this time Trying to get those nice and straight. I'm going to come the other way. And you might experience some breakage of these, but usually you've got like the ability to just push out more lead, which is very handy. So I'm going to do some verticals again, up. This is my less capable way. And you'll find that on yourself. So this time I'm going to start with my less able direction, left to right, coming down, pulling. It feels so much easier going that way, but it's always good to go against the stuff that you're comfortable doing to build up both, and your lines will become more beautiful. Little pushing. Curves. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside, and I'm going to reference this. I'm going to set it upright so that it's again not just laying flat, and I'm just going to start to take some measurements and start to look at things and how I want them. So I've got my horizon, and I know that I've got a darker line from the sky reflection, and it's on the photograph, it's straight, and so I'm just going to come and do another light line, and then I'm going to do a slight angled one to meet those. And so that's the water. Now I've got some beach area coming out here, and it looks not, it might look like it's quite high and long, but it's really not very big. So because it looks wide, but it's not. So always measure when you're unsure. So I know that that's my line of the water here. I'm gonna draw my beach, but I'm gonna take a quick measurement because it's smaller than my eye wants to say it is, and I know that I would draw it too large. So it's quite small, even though I've enlarged the beach area a bit. So I'm just going to take a little, and I'm just going to start to look and reference dark and light, the width of the beach, how much of my paper. So it kind of ends here. And then I'm looking between the water and this line in the water that I see and my beach area. Measuring the beach stops here, even though I might want to draw it bigger. When I take a measurement of it, it isn't bigger. And where am I going to position my sort of main focal point, which is the tree? So I know my paper is the same size that it's on, but I want my tree to be slightly larger, so it's almost the length of the pencil, sitting just below the line where the water comes across. So I'm going to mark it sort of where I want it. Take a measurement again, slightly bigger, and then it's straight. So I'm going to give myself some reference line, and I'm going to put it right about here, and I'm just lining this up. So it's there, just under 2 inches, get my edge lined up. And I can join these, and it doesn't have to be perfectly straight, so I'm going to freehand it because trees aren't perfectly straight. It wouldn't look real. And then I'm going to eyeball how wide it is at the top and just start to gently pull lines down, knowing that I've got a bunch of branches I want to add. Okay, and I'm going to start to look at my mountains and my clouds. So I can see that there's some sort of striations of clouds. I'm going to come across with just some lines. And this is far less of the blue area than what's in the photo. And I'll come back and do the branches in a minute. But my beach and logs I want to start to work on. So I've got my beach here. I've got this one very distinct log coming out here into the water. And I think that's kind of interesting. And it touches the bottom of the mountain area. So I'm going to come in and do my mountains next. And I can grab a measurement off, and it's quite small, right? So you want to keep it quite small. And to do that, you can just grab a measurement and see what's going on. Now I'm just going to freehand it across. And I think there's sort of another one in front. So everything's coming out of this horizon line. And the tree, the log that is going up into the water, even though I might want to just keep it small, I know that it's hitting those mountains in terms of, you know, how big it is. So I'm just going to freehand it. It kind of looks like an open mouth. And it comes down into some darker shadows. So I want to position it into the water so that I know not to go in there when I'm doing my water drawing, you know, filling in my water. And then this beach area comes sort of here. And again, and then big logs. There's a little bit of grass, which I want to include. I'm going to mark that off, and then I'm going to come in and do those logs in a minute. I'm going to move to the cloud area. So I did my little whimsical shapes, not looking for any precision, lightly forming some cloud areas and squinting, and you can see that there's some clouds are not white as such. They have lots of different colors going on in them, but the simplest thing to do when you're starting is just to squint, know that they're not white, and then just start to gently mark in areas, knowing where sort of half the width of your picture is, your reference photo, and then coming and measuring that and going, okay, where are those clouds? Nothing is meant to be perfect. You've got some real pretty ones right resting on these mountains. So I'm going to put those in. A little tower here, a big one here that's reflected in the water. So I'm going to come down and do that in a minute. I'll do those branches on the tree in a second. So there's a lot of white water here. So the same way that I did my indication of preserving that area, I might just stipple it lightly to remind myself, don't go in there. Don't go in the water. Like, don't fill that in with other marks that represent the water. So again here, just some stippling maybe. I want to preserve that, and here, maybe a little bit here because these clouds are reflecting. So now I've got some basic forms. I'm going to start to work on the logs. So I can see that this log, compared to the height of the tree, is about 2/3. So even though I haven't made the tree that much bigger, I'm going to make sure that this log that's to the right of the tree is positioned there, but a bit down from the tree itself, and then just going to start to looking where is my dark and light, and then I've got the end of a stump here, so a circle, kind of just, and there's one coming across. So the angle of the logs, so you know what straight up and down is, right, obviously, and you know what a diagonal is. So you start to go, okay, there's the angle. You could use a protractor if you wanted to, but I don't want to go to that much trouble. But definitely you could measure those angles from straight. But I know that there's one like that, and then there's one over here. This one, yeah, see, I did that. This one actually comes this way. So the angle of this log is more than I had it. I had it too steep of an angle. So it's always good to take your ruler and go along the different shapes and go, okay, here's straight. And then what's the angle of this? So there's the one that I drew that was like the dog's mouth kind of, and then this. So angle, grab the angle, bunch here. And then there's an upright one that's got lots of light on it, and it's going out into this beach area, but how far? Not too far. So I'm going to look at the distance on the beach that it goes into. So I'm always referring to other areas. Know that this is going to be my lit area, which is very important. The lights and the darks. And then there's the one that's laying down, sort of another end. The angle of the one over here. And how the negative spaces between the logs. I'm looking at that. But because it's basically the same size as the photo, it's easy to take those measurements and not have to worry about too much enlarging. Lots of different little logs over here. Good. So now I'm going to come back and look at my tree shapes. I've got a bunch of little... So I haven't really been able to use the pencil in the way that is going to be the most enjoyable right now. I'm just relaxed, making the marks, judging the height of some of these outcropping branches, freehanding, and I could always erase them. So that's why it's good to go light, come down, there's a big one, and how far out into those clouds? Quite a ways. Straight here, nothing else on this side, and then a bunch of, so there's that one. This is a cloud here. I want to make sure that I'm not mixing my clouds with my branches. Big one that's quite dramatic out here. Couple here. So you've got basically everything laid down. Now you can have some fun with your pencil. So I'm going to start looking at some fun areas with light and dark that are very pronounced. So one that I quite like is this log here. So I'm just going to use my mechanical pencil to start to pull these lines. And again, you're just really enjoying the mark making itself, preserving the lit area. And move around to the parts that you like. I see on this log that there's a very interesting swoop, and I like to make swirls. I have to say I enjoy sort of a swirly line. And it's going to come out this side, swirling, and to the end where it's been cut. Okay, and then I'm going to come and do some darkening on this, pressing harder, some shorter lines, maybe some cross hatching. And there's a bigger gap than what I drew initially, so I'm just going to amend that. Go the other way to build the muscles. And it's so dark down here, you can't really see what's going on, so we're just going to pull those lines like that. And then I'm going to come back and even it out with some verticals. Some diagonals. It's so nice with the mechanical pencil how precise it is. You'll either probably love it or hate it, but give it a chance. And I see there's this circle here and a log with lots of light here. So sometimes when you're doing the lit area, you can just come up in the shadow to it, but I'm just going to draw it in right now. You wouldn't have to draw the line. You could just draw the shadow enough that the line eventually appears. But just for brevity's sake, I'm going to draw it in and do some crosses. I'm just messing around with these butt ends of these logs. Angle down. squinting. I know there's lots of dark in here, but I'm not going to be concerned about that yet. I'm going to go back and do that. So here's my big long one, and then there's this. I can see there's a lot of grasses, so I'm going to do some swoops. Practice, practice with your grasses. Pull. And there's some here. And of course, grass is not uniform. It'll be bent. There's a bunch in here I can see. I'm going to do some little, my pencil is too short. The grain of the wood. And to get this value dark enough, I'd have to go over it a few times, but I'm just enjoying these, making these lighter marks. So I'm not going to get the depth of the value. I've got another regular pencil to do that in a more speedy fashion. So press a little bit harder. Leaving the light source there where it's hitting. There's another one here that's very lit. So I'm going to come in and just do some shadow here without drawing the log itself. And eventually the log will emerge because I'm drawing lines up to it. Another one here that's getting some light. Shadow here. Now the verticals and going the other way. Or not the verticals, those are diagonals. Etc. So I'm not going to be able to get the whole thing done in this time that I like to keep my videos to, but you get the idea of the logs, and then the tree I'm going to do with the regular pencil. But to do the clouds, and this is very enjoyable, at least I find it so, is squinting to the dark areas. You know where your white is here, your puffy. And then I like to do these very, and you're looking at the reference photo, doing some horizontals where you see the shadow of the cloud. The cloud is now casting a shadow from itself. And then you can just gently rub a little bit to smooth those. So you're actually going around the white areas to leave them available as you fill in a bit of these shadows. So it's a very good exercise for your the development of your line drawing. And I'm going to go back up into here because it's darker than what I've got. Coming across. And I might just take some of that out. And you start to squint and refer to the photo and then down to your drawing to see where the darks are. And of course it's your imagination as well. It's not meant to be a photograph. And you spend as much time as you want on that. And then when you're coming down where that would be reflected in the water, we know that there's a darker rippling water here. And you could do a lot of them. But I'm just going to do the lines for now. And then I marked it out here. My horizontals. Coming out on the other side of the tree. And because the cloud is reflected in this darker area of water as well as in the lighter parts of the water, you're going to not do as much in that spot where it is darker. So I would put some material down in there, but not as much as here, because this is a very big cloud causing a very big reflection of whiteness in the water. Because of course the water itself is clear, hopefully, but it looks blue because of the sky and all those complicated things. Okay, so we've got the little beach area, which I would come back and do darkening where the rocks are a little bit more, and then just giving the idea of beach, not having to get too precise. And I'll come back and do that log in a minute. I want to finish with keep doing the water. So now there's a white area here that we marked and one here. So this area is darker than this, so I can do that same thing but lighter. Skipping the highlighted area. This is basically the same color on both sides. This is a bit darker because of the receding aspect with the atmosphere. So lighter as we come towards the beach. Leaving this area, the highlight from this big cloud. A bit darker towards the horizon there as it recedes. Keeping this, there's a rock in the water, excuse me, in the water, so I'm going to just draw a little rock. Fill in the shadow edge. There's another one out here. Here. I'll come back to this area and make it nicer, but I just wanted to get those in so you could see. And so yeah, I would definitely do more work on these logs and in the clouds, of course. The tree would need some darkening, and this cloud. So the whole thing, you would just keep going over and adding all the different, the highlights, the angles, the texture, interpreting it as you want to portray it yourself. So now I'm going to take my other pencil and I'm just going to come in and do my tree with some pullings of lines down. And there's a little bit of light on the tree, but it's very dark. There's a jiggity, interesting branch. Very interesting top part of this tree. Some little branches coming off it here, and then there's a big there's a very interesting one here. So pulling. Mostly on this side, because I know the light source is here, even though it's very hard to see that there's any light hitting the tree itself, the time of day, but I'm going to leave a little bit. I just think it's more interesting that way. And then this branch, push and swirl, push, and this one's kind of coming up. Oh. And I think, okay, that's kind of interesting. And I would go back, definitely do more clouds, but the mountains now. So you look at the direction of all the lines you've done so far, and you might want to do complete vertical lines. So I know that this one, when I'm squinting compared to a lot of these shadows here, and I look at the value of this mountain, I'm going to just start to come and put some of those. I might have missed a branch there, but that's okay. Just for interest's sake of pulling a line that's going in a different direction, coming down to my water horizon. It's just the uniformness of the lines plus the distance between them gives you the lightness of the mountains, like the color of the mountain, the value of it. And go back over and keep doing. And I'm going to get my other mechanical pencil because I quite enjoy doing that with these. And I might do like 10 in this direction and then 10 coming down. Paying attention to how close they are, where they hit the horizon, the water. Darkening the horizon because I know that it's going to give me the illusion of distance on my flat surface. Clean this area up a bit. Make sure that I've got pretty clean highlights. Are, and I haven't done the clouds themselves, so the reflection wouldn't necessarily make sense to the eye, but once you got these clouds more filled in, this one coming over, I would spend more time on these to darken them up a bit, but you get the idea. The clouds, the beach, the water. So I would just carry on with the grasses and doing some this way. I really enjoy these little ones to show where the grass is, and some tiny trailing ones. And yeah, that is how I would do a landscape and get some stuff laid down, get some practice in, create those mountains in the distance, the water, any focal points. So if you're out and about and you're looking at landscapes, and do that same idea, if you get something with a high contrast like this one and take a photo of it. But yeah, I hope that has been something you have found useful. I will see you on our next video, and bye for now.